trying to cheat the rake in the deck. Anything, like you said, anything they can do for downforce, they're going to try to do. And I don't know. I've just always thought that it's easier to just run a legal car and be the same as everybody else and not mess with that. I'm sure there probably is an advantage, but I don't think there's enough of an advantage there with the caliber of drivers that are there to mess with being that guy and getting caught cheating for something as stupid as a quarter of an inch of roof height or a quarter of an inch of length on your roof, or having a half inch wheel opening difference, something like that. I just think that puts a target on your back right out of the gate, and none of those are things that are going to win you a race there. So
right. Yeah. Save yourself the headache.
I just don't see why you would even take a chance with something like that.
Right, for to lose so much over something so little, it's the risk versus
absolutely.
reward isn't worth it. So,
well, he talks about the 16th here and the 16th there. If you start out at if you start at even at the front and you say you go all the way back and you're at 2 inches, right? Does 2 inch really give you that much that much more of an advantage? Maybe. If you're drafting or whatever,
an advantage at all.
Well,
it's an advantage, and you want it.
You think it's a half mile. Now, if you go to Banks, it's not,
right.
All that stuff isn't an advantage at all. You can do some wild, crazy things, and you're not really going to, really gain anything. But you start going to, Willamette or Cottage Grove or something that has momentum, something that is big and with speed, and you start drafting. You don't think that these cars, will draft, but they will. These cars and stuff, will draft next to each other and actually slide. I've seen people sit there and pull out from someone and side draft them and get them all crazy and stuff, and then it happens down there.
Air is air. It's gonna do
air is air.
Well, air is air, and the thing you have to remember about Las Vegas, the biggest thing is the streets there are so long, and you're on the throttle for so long that the first quarter or third of the straight stretch, none of that stuff's going to make a difference. But if you're cheating on body angles and height at the end of the straight stretch there, you carry enough speed where it can become an advantage. I'm pretty confident that guys could make up some time by cheating on body stuff at a place like Las Vegas.
So
the sheer speed of it.
So let's talk about, you talk about speed and you talk about, downforce. Let's talk about now track conditions. They just posted that they have 120 truckloads of brand new dirt that they're bringing in, that they're going to till into the corners and try to make this track a little bit easier and a little bit faster through the turns, so it's not so ready, so it's not so dry slick. You all know it's probably going to go dry slick, but they're trying to get away from all those ruts.
Rough, yeah.
Now, what do you think as a driver through the years that you've gone down there compared to bringing in this new clay? Do you think it's going to be an advantage, or do you think it's going to go back the same way?
Truthfully, I've had a couple of spies that are down in the area, already been to the track and seen what they've going. And as of 3 days ago, all that dirt that they've been bringing into the track was just piled in windrows around the track. So, with that being said, I honestly think that we're probably going to see one of the roughest years at the duel that we've ever seen.
And that makes sense because you don't have time to pack it.
I personally am already taking precautions for that before I even go.
A little extra seat, a little pad in the seat. What are we talking about? It's going to be. I honestly, I agree with Doug. I do, because anytime you put that new clay down and you don't have enough time to get the moisture in it and the equipment
to mix it right.
Well, right, and you don't have the time to put the moisture in it.
It takes time to blend that material with the old material.
And that's a lot of material.
Get it married together, and it takes a lot of times of farming the racetrack to get the two materials to blend and become one. It's Corey, you probably remember back in the days, Eugene, when they decided that they were going to go dirt. And they just hauled dirt and laid it right down over the blacktop.
Yes.
You remember what a disaster that was?
Yes, I do.
I'm envisioning that's going to be Las Vegas next weekend.
And I wouldn't argue with you.
It's not that way, but I really think they're going to run into some issues like that. I think we're going to see really deep ruts, and I think we're going to see really rough spots in the corners, just like we have in years past. But I think the holes are going to be as deep as the new material, for sure. Now, since we're not running on the old material, those holes that generally show up every year probably won't come back. But I do think you're going to see some ruts and some holes in the new material. whatever parts of the racetrack they put it on.
So my information down there from people, like you talk about, you have a couple people down there, and some of the California guys that have came up there up in March to run there have said that it's only gone down so far 8 inches. Now, 8 inches,
it's quite a bit, though.
But you start thinking about it. I mean, you start packing these guys in at 100 and something miles an hour and start laying that right rear down. That 8 inches,
well, it'll peel the track pretty quick.
Yeah, it's going to be done.
Especially those narrow tires.
Like Doug's saying is that if it isn't down 2 feet, I mean, literally, if you don't go down at least 2 feet and dig all that stuff up and then repack it and dig it up and repack it, I believe Doug's going to be right on the money. It's going to be one of the roughest, Vegas trips ever.
Well, and that's kind of something we've talked about off the air is, because this has been probably the hottest topic when it comes to Vegas is, since they made this announcement and even before that was how rough the track's been, how rough everybody's been talking about that. It does take time to pack a track. It does take time to work it and get that place so it can be tabletop smooth like Willamette's been, known to be in the past. I can't say Doug is probably too far from being wrong. I mean, I think you're probably going to see that because it's going to, I think it'll crumble. I think it'll peel. And, you're blowing the top off. That doesn't have time to get packed. I mean, it's going to create some situations for some guys that are it's going to catch people off guard.
You talk about if they didn't farm the track up that well before they put the new clay on, you're going to have spots where you had those holes before, and then you're going to be having that new material in there. So if you had a 4-inch hole before and you're putting 8 inches on top, well, you got 12 inches that'll peel now.
Right.
And 12 inches is going to be one heck of a G6
turn a guy over.
Well, it'll take 2 inches to turn a guy over.
Well, I know, but I'm saying your chances are.
We've seen John Campos. I mean, he's went end over end, this year. But yeah, I mean, you guys are absolutely right. You start thinking about is that I mean, they should have done this back in March. And I understand bringing it in. I know Las Vegas with everything they're trying to make all 3 tracks the best of the best. I mean, they're making it into a huge sporting complex.
It's an awesome complex.
It is. But you start thinking about, these drivers and stuff going down there. If you would have left it the way it is, like Doug, if they had left it the way it is, you being down there 9 times or 10 times, you know what to expect when you go down there. But now you bring in a multiple of something. Well, maybe the first day might not bring what you think, but the next 3 days, I bet you it's going to catch a ton of people off guard.
Well, you're probably right. It is, and the only upside to any of it is the majority of the people going are usually they're repeats. They go every year. It's a big deal. I know it's a big deal for us, and it has been for several years. Since I've raced Moss, this has been the highlight of our season to go do this. And everybody's got notes from the year before. Well, only a certain part of those notes are going to be any good now. And so, if anything, it's going to even the playing field for everybody because nobody knows what we're going to get.
And see, that's what, I started talking to, like I said, a couple of people down there, and even some of the people up here that I've talked to. And you hit it right on the nose, is that it is actually something that, you talk about Bobby Hogue. We knew going down to Bakersfield, Bobby Hogue was going to be the guy to beat. Bobby Hogue. I mean, he's won it. I mean, the dude has, his own set of, keys when it comes to that place. And Bobby is another one of these guys that go down there, just like Lucas Scott and stuff was, the fastest guy last year. He won it. These guys are coming back. You already know that they're fast.
Oh, yeah.
So when you bring in, again, that multiple and go, hey, look, you throw in basically that trump card, everybody's, you like that Vegas. Everybody's on the same playing field when it comes down to it. It's just whoever can sit there and read the track. You got 240 some odd cars already pre-entered. I'm sure there's going to be even more than that. In late entries and everything else. Is that even on top, maybe they're looking almost at 300 cars. That's what they're looking for. Is 300 cars.
Generally, yeah. I think the average is more up around 280, 260 to 280.
Yeah, because
there'll be. I picture 275 cars is the number that I shoot at every time. So you have to remember, all those guys are going. Everything that we said about it being an even playing field, you have to remember there's 30 guys that show up to that race every year. They're the best there is in our sport. You're Terry Phillips. You're Johnny Sadoff. Jeff Taylor, my good friend. showed up last year and shocked everybody.
Right.
These guys are the best race car drivers in the nation, and it doesn't matter what tire they put us on, what we've got for an engine, what dirt they throw on the track. Those guys are going to find a way to the front. They're going to figure it out, and they're going to be fast. And those are the ones that all of us Saturday night guys put a target on. Those are going to be the guys to beat. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are when we get there. Those are the guys that are going to be fast no matter what.
That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, especially, if you guys have, if people going down there, if you haven't done your research,
you're in trouble.
Wait till next year.
You're in trouble.
Do not go. Do not pack your stuff, unpack it, sit at home, watch it on pay-per-view. This is not something that you take somebody that has not done their research and or went down there and at least watched, because it's like a Bakersfield. It's very fast-paced. You have almost 300 cars. That's just in the A mod class. Again, we're not talking about sport mods. There's 500 cars, close to 500 cars down there for 4 days. It's intense. It's basically a Bakersfield on steroids. So when you come down and you think about it, you pill draw, and then you get whatever lineup in. You might be in, lineup 47. So you got to wait all that time and wait all that time, and then you get anxious, and all that time now you're at 46, and then your heat race comes up, and that track is 10 times different than what you ever went out on. You got to make sure you have your guys there looking at the track that know what they're doing to come back and say, hey, look, Doug, this is what the track's doing. From six races ago.
What are you feeling?
Right.
Exactly.
6 races ago, what can we change? How many guys do you got going down with you, Doug?
I'm taking one guy with me, and 2 guys will meet us down there.
Now
we've got a couple other lifelines that'll be wandering around in the pit area if we need them, and I'm sure that we'll have to reel them in at least once or twice while we're there. But
let me ask you a question.
Altogether, I've got a half a dozen guys at my disposal, and 3 of them will be there full time.
So these guys have a lot of knowledge and stuff of like track conditions, chassis. Can they relay that message back to you?
Say it out one more time.
The guys that you got going down there, can they understand track conditions? And when I say about that, can they be up on the backstretch and looking at it, and then coming back to you, say you're 20th in line, and say, hey Doug, this is what the track's doing, because you can't just climb out of the car and then climb back in. Do these guys have the knowledge to be able to give you chassis tips and track condition tips?
Oh yeah. I've got my longtime crew chief Fletcher Meyer, he's going with me, and then he's been to every duel with me, so he knows the place just as well as I do.
There you go.
And then Dustin Katie's going along with us, and you guys know you all know Dustin. He's a pretty sharp kid.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna take the 8D car and leave the 7D car at home this time. I wish we could take both of them. He's never been able to go down there and actually race the duel, and I think with his talent and his knowledge that he would do really, really well down there. It's just not in the cards. So it's an advantage to me. I can take him and use him with my right hand while we're there. And between him and Fletcher, I think we've got all our bases covered. And if that doesn't work, I've got a couple other guys from the Midwest, the chassis manufacturer, Kevin Shaw himself, is going to be there this year. And worst comes to worst, we can go round him up and pick his brain. And if there's an answer available, they'll have it for any question that we have. And I think as far as our stuff, we're pretty well set. The problem that you run into down there is there's so many cars, and they run the program so fast. You'll have 8 to 9 heat races lined up already in staging, waiting to go on the track. And once you're in staging, you can't touch your race car. So you have to. That is true. You have to gamble. It's plus double. You have to gamble. You have to gamble an hour and a half before you're ready to go on the track as far as what you're going to do, and then you go line up in staging, and sometimes you'll sit there for an hour to an hour and a half before you get to the racetrack. Well, that racetrack's just like any other racetrack. It changes a lot in an hour and a half, and then you put 13 races or 9 races or 7 races on it in that hour and a half, and it's going to change even more. So most of the time, you kind of already have to know what you're going to do before it's time to do it, and once you pull the trigger, there's no turning back.
So now when you're sitting there and staging, you've got the setup on the car, you can't touch it as far as adjusting chassis or anything.